So, on a 552 Milwaukee, Grand Rapids, West Side flip of 255 Josephine on the Noble line off Miss Pearl on the Sylvan Lake, flips of Silver Lake. That's on the monkey backflip. That being said, I'm be rolling me one while I'm letting y'all come in. I just got a new stash in. Last night I was in the zone. I started to go live, but it was too late, and I was just like, no, I can't do that. But I was in the zone. That Schumann resonance and that solar energy exchange is phenomenal. If y'all don't know what y'all's experiencing, go look it up. Look up the Peace, Chief, Peace. Look up the recent Schumann resonance and the recent solar flares over the last 2 weeks. And that stuff right there, that's literally Mother Nature and Father Nature working together in order to reset the codes on the genetics. It's going to be a whole new species. Malachi told y'all, when the shift change, some of the animals that y'all used to know, they're not going to exist no more. And some of the animals you ain't never heard of, they going to be here. Whether the scientists is doing it in the laboratories or whether Mother Nature is doing it through radioactive solar intervention. The close of this age, Pisces going into the age we're coming into now, Aquarius, all of the old ways have to be put out of usage. So they gave us these biblical narratives, which was predictive programming from childhood for a lot of us. Some of us, like me, it didn't work. I was too unruly. I was too rebellious. I was too much like a North American Indian to digest some Middle Eastern jargon, some European developed war strategy that they gave us and told us it was the word of God. And they tell you right in that book, God is a man of war. So if God being a man of war, and they gave us the war manual, but we don't know they gave it to us so they could program us to follow the narrative. As soon as we realize that, their narrative don't work on us no more. And when their narrative is no longer working on us, the strange thing called awakening takes place. This awakening is the sudden realization that, you know what, them son bitches lying to me. They telling me history, but they telling it to me upside down and backwards. Because I'm looking at how the tribe's been moving for the last 500 years. And if you know your people, like you know yourself, you'll be like, why was we moving like that? Look kind of funny. That's outside of the ordinary. Why are all of the tribes moving north to south and then west to east? What is these people doing? I thought we came on ships. They told us we came on some slave ships. But I remember building the pyramids in Mesoamerica. I remember the priests having ceremonies on sacred mounds that was put there because they are in strategic energy centers, and they had a powerful ancestor that they wanted to tap the energy of on that energy center, right? So why is they telling me, oh, I know, they trying to trick me. Now, what are they trying to trick me for? In order for somebody to try to trick you, they either trying to trick you for entertainment. In that case, you would go to Las Vegas and you'll watch David Copperfield, and you'll watch David Blaine and Chris Angel if you wanted to be entertained by trickery. One of the side effects of trickery, though, is the more trickery you see, the more you get to see trickery. The more you watch the magic shows, the less magical they become. You begin to see through the charade. So these people come over here with a bright ass idea of taking advantage of the best people on the planet that trained everybody on the planet how to even be on the planet, because we first on the planet. So they told us that we came out of Africa. Well, I don't have a problem with African people. I love them people. I like how the tribes is warrior tribes, hunter tribes, gatherer tribes. I love how they keep a lot of their ancestral oral information in the family, right? So I don't have no problem with Africans, but it's only one problem with the problem of us being African, and that's that all humans on Earth is made from the same carbon that comes from the corn. The reason why that's important, because everybody on Earth know the corn originated over here in Mesoamerica. In other words, the mound builders that built mounds, they also developed corn. Not only did they develop corn, these ancient ones that could take physical form, incarnate and disincarnate at will as whole-like beings to three-dimensional beings, they knew that the human that they was making, they needed the most stable form of carbon that they could find in order to facilitate the biocommunication between the melanin in the brain and the skin. And also they knew that the carbon of the corn was the perfect insulator in order to transmit that data from the crystals called DNA into the physical avatar that they would take form in. So they made man in her image and after her likeness. And they keep trying to trick us into believing that the man came before the woman. But if the man came before the woman, my question to them is, what womb did he develop in? Was he just laying on the ground and he just got up and started walking? I mean, what you mean the man came before the woman? And when I look all through nature, the birds lay eggs that comes out of a uterus. Reptiles do both. They give live birth and they give egg birth, but they still got to come out of a uterus. Fish lay eggs and is fertilized, but they still got to come out of the uterus. Elephants carry babies for 2-3 years, but it still got to develop in the uterus. The blue whale carry a baby pretty long time, but it still has to develop in the uterus. So they took this man that just developed with no uterus. That means he didn't come through the gate. If he didn't come through the gate, he don't belong here. But anyway, they tell us that they took one of his ribs and made a woman. And I'm sitting there thinking to myself, every man that I ever heard existed had a mama. The most popular man in the world in history has to be Osiris or Ra or Set. They have to be the oldest known names we still continuously speak. And all them suckers had a mama. This ain't making no sense. Okay, so since you took the rib from the man and you made the woman, what womb did she develop in? And how did it become the rule to get into the realm called Earth? Everything got to come through a uterus except 2 people. They don't match. That does not match the facts of what we see in nature. Because that which you learn from nature, you learn naturally. But that which you learn from man can be a goddamn lie. Right? I see y'all, I'm glad y'all came to listen to me. But I'm still stuck on this problem. They want me to believe that God is a man that can make people poof alive with no process, but the rule that everything follow is involved in a process. There's an incubator, Stargate, called the uterus, but they want me to believe that they didn't use that for Adam and Eve. That's what they want me to believe. This is not matching. You got to be a befuddling idiot to believe that. That narrative is explosive on its face. As they say in law, the prima facie case is tainted out the gate. The first reason that it's tainted, because it was already people before Adam and Eve in the same book in the first chapter. So this has got to tell me that they got to be telling a damn lie, and what they look like they doing is they look like they doing some science shit to me. That's what it looked like to me. Like there are already people here, Genesis 1:26, in the male and female gender, which was only a handful of men because it wasn't that many. But somebody made man in their image and after their likeness. But it's already people here. Right? Adam and Eve was first. Okay. They already said they made somebody though. They made them in tribes or families or clans. It say it right there in the book. So people be like, well, they think they be on to something. If Cain slew Abel and it was only Adam, Eve, Cain, and Abel, who he married? He married one of them people from 126. The people from outside of this enclosure called the Garden of the Light, or called the Paradise or the Garden of Eden. This don't make no sense if the church know what they talking about, unless they deliberately trying to mislead us. And the first thing that make me think that they trying to deliberately mislead us is they translate Hawa into the name Eve. And they don't tell us that Hawa means the lady who runs the tribe. It means the tribal mother, the tribal leader, Hawa. But they translate it as Eve as if it's the pretext to something evil. Are we thinking? Are we paying attention to what these people telling us, or are we just accepting a narrative and falling for the banana in the tailpipe? Because the banana in the tailpipe is wrong to me. Don't no banana go in no tailpipe. So I'm sitting here and I'm like, that don't make no sense. That they don't tell us this. And they don't tell us that Genesis chapter 1 said this was a reconstruction. Well, in order to be a reconstruction, you had to go through a destruction first, right? And I told y'all the last ice age, right, was caused by a nuclear holocaust. We leveled this whole mother, and it's a part of the Vimana Sutras that tells you part of the story. And it tell you how we blew this sucker up, but what it don't tell you, and these writings are here at the Vatican, so eventually it'll come to light, that the people we call in the Anunnaki, or those who came from heaven to earth, landed on Mount Hermon, and they began to colonize the planet in search of something we call gold. Well, gold to us was about the same as dirt. You didn't have value to it until they came. Once they came and they started killing us for it, we figured out that it must be something that they need in order for them to be this zealous in their pursuit of gold. And he never stopped. The search for gold is older than history. History, I'm going to take some calls in a minute, Josh. Just give me a minute. History tell us that history starts 6,000 years ago, right? When you all of the early historians, they were like, the earth 6,000 years old. It was created by God in Genesis chapter 1, 6,000 years ago. And these 6,000 years culminated up in us creating history over a 6,000 year period. But that was before carbon dating. That was before uranium dating. That was before they understood the principles of strata and of Earth. Now they tell us that the pyramids is about 10,500 years old, and the Sphinx is even older. So I'm sitting here, and I'm supposed to believe 6,000 years ago that some man just got up, and then some guy snatched his rib out, and the woman grew from it. That don't make no sense. Everything on this planet that's sentient, and even partial sentient, if it have instincts, comes through a uterus, a portal of life, a stargate, a dimensional transformer or transmitter of energy, a machine that takes you through lifetime after lifetime, where the monad jumped through all of us. It's the same energy, but it's fractal. It's broke up. And everything in the hologram is the sum total of all of the data of the hologram. Every part got all the information that's in the whole. That means that we all know this stuff already. So who going to remind us of what we already know? That you can't get in this earth and call yourself a human without a uterus. It's not going to happen. So anybody tell you that the man was first, they got to be lying to you. So what they covering up? I'm going to tell you what they covering up. They covering up what's called sacerdotal birthright. The sacerdotal birthright is the right of the women to reclaim Earth based on the gender of the planet itself. The oldest contract with Earth and the universe is the contract that established the gender of Earth. So the rogue patriarchs, that's the Rouge patriarchs, as in Moulin Rouge, as in River Rouge, as in the red bloody River Rouge, they did wrong. So they give us this misinformation, but my ancestors said that because of Father Sky and Mother Earth, right, they put us here. Father Sky and Mother Earth. That sounds something like Shu and Tefnut to me in kinetic science. They say the great man walked across the sky with the black dog. What they talking about? That's the Orianos. Why is that even relevant? Because the Orianos is Orion, star constellation, and there is a connection between the bloodlines and the star systems. The bloodlines ties to the star systems by vibration and frequency and zodiac sign. So only certain people can be born on a certain part of the zodiac sign, and they know who we all are because they've been tracking us with the stars. But we don't know the movement of the stars, so we don't know when to expect one of us to be able to come and break the paradigm, right? So I go to this story called the crucifixion. But before I go to the story, I examine the word crucifixion. It comes from two Latin words, crux, which means at the core of something, at the root, at the center, and fiction. Fiction means false, made up, not real, untrue. It's a metaphor. It's something used to teach something that's not necessarily true in and of itself. It's a fiction. So the story also means made up. So they gave us a crucifixion story, which at the core of fiction is fiction. That's what they're telling us. At the core of the falsehood is the story, and it's the greatest story ever told. Or maybe it's the greatest lie ever sold. We sit here and watch these preachers, right? And they supposed to be teaching us what the Bible say is the path to righteousness, and they involved in all kind of debauchery. That don't mean that they can't teach you what's right. It means that what they teaching you has to be used in a different manner than they giving it to you in order for them to receive success from it, and you only get failure from it. That means that's not what they telling us it is. The preacher can go out and do all the dirt in the world, the priest, touching on little boys and girls in the church and the pool pits. Don't nobody want to say nothing, right? Because they on that secret squirrel shit, which means that it came from a secret society. If it came from a secret society, it means it's ritualistic magic. And if it's ritualistic magic, you can trace it back to its source once you know what rituals they're using. And when they tell you to take the sacrament, drink of the blood, eat of my flesh, that's an ancient Babylonian rite. When you kill the god of a people, you feed him to the people to corrupt the soul of the people. It's called a sin rite, written by a character in the pantheon called Ninursin. Ninursin also like to pass himself off as being Thoth or Tahuti, but he's not. They cousins, but they two distinct different characters, two distinct different personalities, right? Since it's chiefing with the chief, let me get the chiefing. Okay, now, you have these people teaching us this stuff and coming to find out if they went to Bible school, right, and studied eschatology, they know it's all made up. They teach it in Bible school. They tell you where it came from, how they got it, who gave it to them, what it means, and then they don't never tell us. Right? Now, the ones that tell us, they have to figure out a way to tell you that doesn't offend the system. I'm not a Christian. But if I was a Christian, the only one I would be listening to in this era is named Chuck Missler. Because he going to tell you, because a lot of stuff in that book was made up. And Chuck be like, yeah, this is a contrivance. It wasn't part of the original text. They added it in around the 8th century, the 9th century, whenever they added it. Then, when you get done realizing how many things that they added that wasn't part of the original text, then you understand that's called padding the text. That means you rewriting the story in real time in order for people to accept the narrative, because however you gave them the narrative is no longer gelling with the current events of the time. So you have to alter the narrative in order to maintain your control. Maintain your control. Frantz Fanon wrote in one of his books, The Establishment may give you all of the rewards, but the same establishment that rewards you in order to maintain its control will also kill you. The establishment. Kind of remind me of the industry and DMX when he said, I'm a artist in the industry. I'm not an industry artist. it kind of makes sense, right? So how do we break this spell? You go back to the origins. That's not easy. But they be telling you, your elders who've been doing the research, they've been getting little pieces of the puzzle, but they couldn't tell you the absolute truth because they still had fragments they hadn't decoded yet. And this is why you have Chancellor William writing The Destruction of Black Civilization, but you got a whole different elder that's writing, they stole it, you must return it. Right? Then you got people that don't look like us, Albert Churchward and what's the other guy? Gerald Massey, that was figuring out how to translate hieroglyphics. These are the founders, what they call Egyptology, Egyptian studies. They was the ones that allegedly invented it, but they no longer accept it as accurate sources of Egyptian historical research. But the watered down version of Egyptology we get now, that don't even match. It's totally unsound. It's like if you know the story of drama from your neighborhood, but when you hear it somewhere else and it don't sound half as bad as it actually was, like Black Wall Street or Oklahoma City bombing, or the bombing of Philadelphia move. Why would you go bothering them people? Them people minding their own business, but minding your own business just so happen to be a threat to the system. Living and cultivating your own substance, your food, and living off the fat of the land is a threat to the system. The people that spoke out, your Dale Jones and your Mumia over in Jersey, right? They spoke up. Dale Jones not here no more. Mumia been locked up all this time because the police shot his dirty ass partner, or the dirty cop shot the good cop, and then they whopped Mumia upside the head first together, right? And then when he come to his senses, now you got all these police around him telling him he just shot the police. And when you read it, it's obvious what happened, but don't nobody want to tell the story because it was witnesses there, but they don't want to tell the story. They scared of the police that much where they letting this man rot in prison rather than tell on them dirty ass police that don't even belong here. That's how they use the system, right, to keep you oppressed by intimidation tactics. The very stuff that they not supposed to do is exactly what they doing, but they tell you if you do the same thing, you're a criminal. And then they're going to put you in a cage. That's Pac say, where they capture all your rage and violence. That way you can go as nutty as you want to, but they can control you. You micromanage now. You under the microscope. They watching your day-to-day activity. They watching how you move. They feeding you. They can poison you. Anytime you get a meal, they can be poisoning you, and ain't nothing you can do about it. They can gas you in your cell in the middle of the day, and you can't even get out in some of them places. In most of them. You're just going to be dead, gassed to death. You at the mercy of the state. The regular people out here don't understand what it's like being in prison, and they don't understand the war protocols involved in creating a military industrial complex and then turn around and create a prison industrial complex as if they was unrelated with the similar name. They don't never name nothing similar that's unrelated. Even if they don't admit that it's related, it's some kind of way one drives the other. It's part of the same industrial complex. The root to the word industrial is industry. Industry is big business, right? Which takes you to big corporations and break that down. So now it's all weaved back to Wall Street. Wall Street is where they first traded us. They was actually auctioning us back to our tribes, right? Because they thought we was broke. They didn't beat us damn near to death. Some of us, they done did some stuff so horrible, so then once they auction you back to your tribe, you ain't no more good. But the tribe wouldn't leave you hanging, so they was auctioning them off on Wall Street. But we don't know that the ones they was auctioning off was coming from Florida, right? They coming from Florida. where the Gullah Wars being fought, and they coming from tribes from all across the land. But they got us believing that we came on some goddamn slave ship. The purpose of that narrative is a military-based ideology. And this is the purpose, so you will know. And this is, the reparations argument has nothing on this argument, because once you realize that reparations is the carrot on the stick to lead you away from your heritable birthright as the caretakers of the land, once you understand that, you will be like, hold up, I ain't falling for the banana in the tailpipe. You will turn around and be like, nah, we want our birthright, fuck your reparations. Now this is the problem. As long as you are unaware that you're standing on your own birthright territory, there's no way you will ever reclaim it. First of all, you won't have the ambition, the foresight, or the vision to see what you need to do. But as soon as you realize you didn't come on no slave ship, your ancestors been here since here was here because they built here. Not only did they build here, they put the people on all the other places wherever they at over there. So they built here and they built there. So they built both of them, and then they populated them according to the 12 daughters of Isis. The 12 daughters of Isis was the 12 different bloodlines on the matriarchal lineage of earth caretakers. The great mother I was the 13th bloodline, which was the Omega bloodline, which was the original bloodline. And this is why she was able to produce so much out of the spectrum, because it's all within the great mother. She sits on the sacerdotal seat. Earlier, I mentioned the sacerdotal seat, and this is the importance of it. It is the seat that has the right to tell all armies on this planet, go sit your bad ass down, Big Mama home now. She do not allow us to bicker and fight among each other. But remember, when the parents go away, the kids will play. And some of them play rougher than others. And then you got kids that don't even belong here, that ain't part of the family. Them the bullies they brought in from the schools they got exiled from because they couldn't make the cut. And then they learned all of the lessons and tore the school up. Well, now they trying to tear this school up, terraform the earth with chemtrails and digging up the soil in mass. It was never supposed to dig up major mines. The industrialization is overkill and burdening of the earth. They tell us that our carbon footprint is the problem. In case y'all don't know, carbon footprint means melanated people, right? And the ones that got their one drop of blood also is considered melanated. So the carbon footprint they've been complaining about, been us, telling us as global warming was telling us that the solar cycle was returning and the moon cycle was ending. Under the moon cycle, the lesser melanated people was able to flourish because they was under the lesser light. But now, according to the solar flares in the Schumann resonance, the sun cycle's returning, the sun waking the earth up. Hey, Big Mama, wake up. Hey, Big Mama, wake up. We need you to clean the parasites off. And when that Schumann burst go and them motherfuckers talking about, oh, the headache, get the fuck away from them. They did some dirt you don't know about. Don't take up for them. You can't help them. They gonna have them migraine headache. I'm telling you, it sounds like a siren in my head. They are being cleansed from this. You gonna hear it. You gonna see people running their head into brick walls, diving in front of traffic, jumping off of bridges when Big Mama cleanses it. When that final Schumann burst go through, we call it Atlas Shrugged. And that was based on a post-apocalyptic utopia created after Atlas Shrugged. And the Atlas Shrugged is the Schumann resonance violently sending out a cleansing beacon of sound wave frequency. This comes up as Schumann resonance. You can look it up. The Schumann resonance was to conceal the fact that it's supposed to be Schu-Tefnut resonance, mother to father, but that they usurped it and gave men the responsibility, M-I-N, which is the male sex god, right? Hey, I love Ayn Rand. She was on the inside writing stories to tell us on the outside what was going on without ever telling us what's going on the inside. So she was excellent, from the title to her books, to her name, to the movements that she was making. She was something else. But my favorite is Madame Blavatsky, right? Yep. So you're going to be seeing more volcanic activity, because when she blow, she blow. When she blow, she blow. But everything that don't belong here won't be here. So on the aftermath, if you see somebody and you thought it wasn't going to be no pale faces here, they stand. Because some of us got this misconception that everybody that's going to be here going to look like dark skin like me. That's not going to happen. Who don't vibrate with the frequency of Earth and who can't raise their vibration to match the frequency, because the women gonna get it first. They gonna get it in small doses, because the ones who mitochondrial said that it, and they did their self-work, they gonna be at the top of the food chain. They gonna be the ones telling the earth how to clean up. We're gonna be telling us what the earth doing to clean itself. They gonna be shaking their rumps, causing earthquakes. And they going to be whistling, and they going to be singing their hymns, and then you're going to see raindrops. You're going to see all the most beautiful storms you ever seen in your life, but they're going to be so damn destructive. They're going to be so damn destructive. They're going to be the most beautiful storms you ever seen in your life, because they always like to do it with style, but they're going to be so destructive. Sky going to take on different colors, right? But everything got to be cleansed. From, if it was done in the spiritual, which has already been done there, and now we about to see it manifest in the physical, and the work to make it manifest in the physical been being done, as long as we know what's going on, it won't make us panic. And as soon as we don't panic, there's no loosh. And somebody going to starve for the lack of the loose, so they going to already be exposed right before the blast, so you can be smiling and laughing at their rotten ass for what they about to get. Now, some of them going to still live through the blast because they belong here. But because they was corrupted, they file going to be brought out and show their corruption, and then they go into the gallows. So when they be reborn, because they can't go nowhere else, when they be reborn, they'll be reborn in the middle of the golden age, even if it's in 20 years. 20 years from now, we're going to be in a drastically different reality than we in now. Yep, 9 ether activation. Now remember, 9 ether is the composite of all gas forces, conscious gas forces. The gas forces was what we called fourth dimensional mind matrix, with the composed of your thoughts. But it becomes solidified, and then it becomes the etheric being, the being that could translate the ethers into the reality. Now, this is African root science, which is called the science of 9 ether, the ether utopian sciences of the ancient ones that was scattered throughout every piece of literature on the planet. Good, bad, and ugly. Because some of the literature, that stuff be so hard to read, like it's like watching paint dry. But then some of it be so dynamic that while you reading, you can't do nothing but put your heart in the story. Because it be that dynamic. You be all in it. Like some of Khalil Gibran stuff, like The Bridesmaid or Ambitious Violet, or John the Madman. It's like you right there with the struggle. Oh, my favorite Khalil Gibran is called Satan. That one is a story about a priest who seen the angels striking Satan down to earth. And he said it was, I think it was Michael and Uriel was whooping Satan ass. So the priest going past, he sees Satan in the ditch. Satan get done telling him how if it wasn't for him, there would be no need for a priest, and that if he didn't save him, the priest would lose his livelihood. So at the end of the story, the priest is taking Satan on his back to the church to nurse him back to health. And I was like, this is exactly what's going on. Right, so over here, everything was supposed to always be based on the sciences and nature. Where that if a child sit out long enough and watch nature and nobody don't tell him nothing, nature will educate him how it works. He'll see it all playing out. But as soon as you start to indoctrinate him, you usurp the ability to tap in to the natural frequencies of nature around you. Some children love nature so much that when you try to offer them that, Eric, that book, that Yahweh book, I literally was reading it in a dream and found it in my waking state years later. So, and I was telling Rich about it. That's what made us get it. But it got some, mine just came. And it got some powerful stuff in there too. But that's another story. Yeah. But, we come in waves, teams. And it's like a game of tag. And this is the game of the gods. We have to figure out where the problem is, who caused the problem, where they come from, why they here, what they want, how we gonna get them to leave. They don't want to leave. Okay, so what do we need to do in order to take back what's rightfully ours from them because they stole everything? Then it's still here. They didn't remove it. They just played a trick on us and hypnotized us into believing that our shit not our shit. So therefore we shouldn't say something about other people fighting over our shit as if it was their shit. That's some audacity right there. They trick us into never saying nothing about our shit. And then they fight over each other about our shit that they told us wasn't ours. And we watching them, right? the Zionists fighting with the rest of the secret societies to keep what's rightfully ours away from us. The caucasity of it all. My mama said they got more nerve than a brass ass monkey. Right? I'm sitting there like, these motherfuckers. But we ain't supposed to have enough understanding of our culture that when every ghetto we go to, we operate the same until it's time for us to feed our family. Then we go to war mode. That's our culture. That's our nature. Now they can use it against us. They villainize and demonize all of our cultural practices and then turned around and monetized them because our genetic memory is going to react to it. They monetized them and told us they was holidays. As if we didn't already have celebratory rights for all of the people can know when is the summer solstice, when is the winter solstice, when is the spring equinox, when is the fall equinox, right? We already had those. Then we had historical celebrations of ancestors, and then they started putting their President's Day on top of it. Memorial Day on top of it, right? We had a Warrior Remembrance Day. They turned it into Veterans Day. we had a turkey feast, right? And the turkey feast was for the end of the fall harvest, what we call the final pumpkin harvest. The first pumpkin harvest ends around the All Hallows Eve. That pumpkin festival is where we used to sit around and tell stories around the fire, and then the kids would go out and play tag in the pumpkin patches at night because it was spooky. But they did it for fun. Then we had the final pumpkin harvest coincides with the great turkey hunt that we used to have. The great turkey hunt is where the turkey get associated with Thanksgiving. If you read the Pilgrims Came to the Festival, it tells you right in there that we was already celebrating that festival. It was a harvest festival. And then they turned it into a holiday called Thanksgiving, and it just spread around the world. But we don't know it started over here off of our culture. Everything starts over here because this is where the seed of the root of the great mother come from the firstborn of the earthborn parthogenic son of the great mother to the great mother herself, the omega mother. And this is why you always got to know who the big mama is in order to enforce the blood right. The blood right is enforced through the oral tradition, not the written tradition, right? But once the oral tradition has been accepted by the elders, they begin to dismantle the written system, the system that's founded on paperwork. That's called a contract system. And remember, the only time that the devil have any control over your life is when you make a contract with the devil. Let it sink in. He can't come in unless you invite him in. So he gonna stand around your house and try to create every condition to drive you to come to him for mercy. But some of us is too stubborn and too hard-headed to ever ask that motherfucker for mercy. We just want him gone. And then they end up trying to force their system upon us. And by trying to force their systems upon us, they have us trapped in this psychological conundrum because of the system of uniforms makes it look legitimate. But if you know your people, that wait a minute, they're not legitimate. Because we didn't need police. We didn't need no politicians. The local people took care of the local land, the local cities, and now we had to get vegetables, the same vegetables we grow, tomatoes, potatoes from overseas. Like we don't grow that shit here, right? Everything that they do is to make it where we can't take care of ourselves so they can render us as imbeciles. And as long as you can't take care of yourself and you consider the imbecile, then they justify it for blocking you from taking the throne. But as soon as you prove that you're not an imbecile, that you understand who you are sui juris in your sovereign capacity, and that you back for everything they owe, and notice the agent is notice the principle, and that the oral traditions say to let all of the tribes know as many as you can, and they gonna support the effort to reclaim the land. Just put it in the public domain, and then you'll know it because the president will eventually be forced to say your name. Tell that nigga to shut up. He telling them too much. He didn't divulge more Masonic secrets than the Masons even knew they had. They tell you the story of Hiram Abiff, master of masters, the self-raised master. Taught himself, but he learned from everybody else. He taught himself, but he learned from everybody else. Each one teach one, we all gonna reach some. The revolution of the mind precedes the revolution in the streets. You won't need a revolution in the streets if you put the revolution in the mind first. That means spin your mind around and look at what you're thinking about. Where are your priorities? Because once you realize that the way that you think is because you've been taught to conjure up a spell on yourself. You break the spell off the self. And once you break the spell off the self, like-minded individuals naturally gravitate toward each other to form a power base. And they don't have to physically be in the same space in order to come together. That's the part of the unity that everybody just got to know who they tied to in the process of redemption. Because if you know who you tied to in the processes of redemption, it goes back to the old saying, if you're going to be the leader, know where you're going. But if you don't know where you're going, find somebody that do and let them lead. The elders say the one who knows the path leads the way, right? And we know that the children is always between the leader and the rest of the pack, because the children got to be observed at all times by all of the elders behind them. Right? You don't know how to protect the community, then there ain't no sense of you trying to talk about the community need to be protected. What you gonna do to stop crime? Right? We complain about the police being here. I can't stand them some bitches because they don't belong here. But before we had police, we didn't have this rampant crime. Go back and look at history in America. There was no prison in America before the 1800s. None. But they started turning our castles into prisons, mental institutions, and state buildings. We had ways of raising children where we didn't need to lock their ass up. And then if they did mess around and make a mistake, there was always a redemption process they had to follow to make amends for their errors. You didn't have to steal nothing. You didn't have to rob nobody. That wasn't necessary because everybody was in abundance, so they would have gave you anything that you wanted. All you had to do was ask, and a closed mouth don't get fed. But you open up your mouth, but when they made you scared to open your mouth, you start stealing because you didn't want to ask, because you couldn't take no. No is not a curse word. The power to properly use the word no is a superpower. The ability to use the word no correctly, decisively, and determinately, say that shit, mean that shit. The ability to say no is a superpower. It's the shield that blocks you from the bullshit people throw at you. Everybody wants you to do their part of the work. So rather than them paying attention, right, and do their part of the work, they want you to do their part, but they don't want to tell you that's what they got you doing. They think they slicker than you. Look, if there was barter and trade still, you wouldn't need money, right? We're not under barter and trade. We under debt consolidation, right? It's a debt-based fractional reserve banking system that's used as military application of economics. The cause is in order to extract the wealth from the people without the people realizing that their wealth is being extracted. And they got a two-prong or a bifurcated drain hole. On one side, they got something called interest rate, the rate of interest, the fluctuation of the interest rate. And then on the back end, they got something called inflation rate, right? So when they set the interest rate, it's because they don't want the inflation rate to rise so fast that the people stop using money and start going about barter and trade, start going about growing their own food, right? So they adjust the interest rate, which also is bait to draw you into something called a credit system. I'm going to tell you about credit in a minute. Now, this interest rate is relieving the flow of the interest rate so that it can continuously deteriorate the spending power of your dollar at the register. But they got to gradually do it. That's called the attrition model. Little by little, the attrition model. If you go to the 48 laws of power, it's a law in there that say, preach the need for change, but never change too much too fast. And one of the reasons he tell you that, and he give you a story about it, is people will rebel when the change takes place too sudden. Even if it's something for their best interest, they won't be able to see it because they've been comfortably conditioned to the way things are, and they're not prepared to make the changes to develop what things are coming and will be that's different. So they up there now flying clean trails to clean up the chemtrails because we won. But we have our people that still believe the clean trails is the chemtrails because some of the side effects of the clean trails is giving us weird shit in the weather. Right? Donald Trump downed them planes in 2017. Y'all wasn't watching, but I was. When he first downed them, they said that none of that stuff could be true until he went in there. They had newspaper articles about it back then, but it never came on your Nightline, Dateline, 2020, none of that. It didn't come on none of that. It didn't come on your Channel 6 news, your 11 o'clock news, your 5:30 news. It didn't come on your 12 o'clock noon news. It wasn't on there. But it was newspaper articles about him down in the chemtrail planes back in 2017. That was like one of the first things he did. But somebody got to clean that shit up. So they had to come up with compounds that they would use to clean in the tunnel systems they was drilling, right? They would use certain chemicals to clean the air so that you can tunnel faster if you have an efficient form of cleaning the air so that the people not consuming too much gases like methanes and stuff, CO2s that'll suffocate them slowly. You'll look at the history of the canary in the mine and you understand what I'm talking about. Well, when they came up with they came back up with the old technology from going to Antarctica, from going to Tibet, from going to Mesoamerica and exhuming the artifacts, but they won't never tell us they exhumed certain technological advancements. One of them was a rapid air cleaning, but it requires you to mix certain binding agents. The binding agents takes the stuff out of the air by binding to it. The same principle that when you're doing a heavy metals cleanse, you use cilantro and green algae. The cilantro flush it up for you to wash it out, but if there's no binder, green algae, to attach to the molecule to make it too big to settle back in your nerve endings, now it don't fit. Now your body will flush it out and have something to bind to that's a big enough molecule. It's the same way. When they put the clean trails up there, sometimes the binding stuff will make it look like it's raining concrete. But that's just the stuff that they sprayed up there that has to come down. A lot of our allergies is a side effect of us inhaling the chemicals from the chemtrails. And another thing, everybody keep talking about the 5G towers, the 5G towers. The technology 5G haven't been fully developed yet. It's not operational. What you are believing are 5G towers. They are something that's called ELF towers. ELF towers stand for extreme low frequency. And it was part of the MK Ultra program. They was using different frequencies, the H wave, the ELF wave, and the UHF waves, ultra high frequency, right? They was using those to cause people's thinking to be disrupted. And then they used the basic layout of the sociological platform and the ELF waves to know how to affect people to make them either sedate if they're getting too rambunctious, or if you want them to get rambunctious because your jail population getting low, the right frequency will make them get a ramp that boom, can't help it. I gotta go fight. I gotta go shoot him. I gotta go stab him. I gotta go steal because of the frequency. The frequency is driving your most likely low vibrational state to be the most dominant expression of the self. It's all done through manipulation of the sound waves, the F waves, and it's the same different frequencies from VHF, UHF, which make up the TV. But when you dreaming and they can record and play a visual image of your dream, they tapping into a similar frequency output in your brain that you using for your night vision. And then that frequency, if you dream in sound, they can record the sound based off the movement of your brain waves. Your brain waves can be translated, or this now they putting it up where if you sleep and you dreaming, they can watch your dream while you having a dream on the TV. And some people have a lot of dreams during, and that's the way they come up with all of these new creative movies from. Right? Watching people dreams. They figure out how to do movies like Inception from watching people's dreams play out on a screen similar to a TV screen. All they got to do is adapt it to a standard format for movie making, and the Pentagon send it to, the CIA send it to the Pentagon, and then the Pentagon send the script to Hollywood, and then Hollywood say which one of you freaky creeps want to get the credit for writing this movie? Come bend over my desk. I know you straight, but come bend over because I got one for you. And they do that in order to control who becomes influential in society, right? I told y'all a long time ago they like to anally penetrate the boys because it make them unfit to be a ruler, a leader, a king. Because they become a shattered oracle. They develop schizophrenia when they come online. And ain't nobody going to allow no schizophrenic to be the king. It's just not going to happen. Come in today and everybody's good. And tomorrow everybody got to get put to death. That's not going to happen. Right? So they've been writing about this stuff. The first whistleblower, the first whistleblower, they had to hurry up and get rid of him. That's in the modern part of the modern MK Ultra program that defected was Charles Manson. Charles Manson was not in jail for no murders because he ain't killed nobody and ain't told nobody to kill nobody. And everybody said Charlie never told him to do it except for one person. Tex told everybody Charlie wanted him to do it. Go back and look at the story. I ain't making this shit up. Anyway, Charlie was having these LSD driven rants where he had been trained in San Quentin in mind control. And the handler, the same dude that taught Joseph Senku mind control, was best friends with Jim Jones, right? And Charles was saying that they had told him they was going to put the fluoride in the water. Why they was going to do it, it was supposed to make the people like sheep. Then he went on to tell them about the plan of the government on their divide and conquer program is to make the dark-skinned people fight the light-skinned, or they say the black versus the white, to create a chaotic condition to establish a police state. And Charlie told him that would be Helter Skelter. And then the Beatles song Helter Skelter came out, supposed to have been written by Charles Manson. Anyway, so one of the girls wrote Helter Skelter at one of the crime scenes, but Charles didn't tell him none of that. At no time did Charles Manson ever tell anybody to kill anybody, and it's in the court record that nobody said he told him to kill nobody. But some of the people said, we just knew what Charlie wanted, right? But he ain't tell nobody to kill nobody. He was telling them to beware of the government control, right? And that the government was trying to train him because it was supposed to be a black guy to come out of San Quentin after him that was supposed to get an army of black kids to fight his army of white kids. And this is where you get Mr. DeFreeze, Calvin DeFreeze, a.k.a. Joseph Senku, named itself after the Amistad Senku. And he got blew off he got disintegrated on live TV in the 1970s. The Patty Hearst story is part of that, because Patty Hearst was being used because her relation to the Hearst family. The Hearst family was a newspaper family. They was a high-ranking family over media, but they was handled by the CIA. Now, the Hearst family, Patty she became Tanya. And you'll see her, she's standing there taking a picture with her Scully on, and she's standing in front of the Nagas, the seven-headed cobra. Right? That's a direct tribal message. If you know who the Nagas is, then you know what the message means. But if you don't know what the message means, then that means you don't know what the Naga means. Meaning it ain't none of your damn business. And you can go to my story for today and you can see a brother explaining to you about the Nagas. Right? Who was that on there about the Nagas? I think it was Kevin Gates. He was talking about being the Nagas. But anyway, the codes talk to certain people. Monkey sees snake. Monkey follows snake, even with snake in the grass. You don't have to, the monkey don't have to cut the grass to know where the snake is. Once he's seen him, the Sakomai don't never stop following the snake. Right? Even if he's not looking in the direction of the snake, as soon as the snake moves, if he get ready to come back in the direction of the monkey, he'll spin around and face that snake before the snake ever come out the grass. He know where the snake is. But he'll watch the snake in his mind as it slither away, and he'll know that it's gone, right? He got control of his Sakomai, his monkey mind, right? And so the the wars that they was trying to create was the continuation of COINTELPRO, because they trying to stop somebody. When they say we can stop the rise of any potential messiah who could incite the masses, and they named Martin Luther King, and they named Malcolm X, and they named Elijah Muhammad, right? So them was the ones they was most worried about. That was the top three. Well, all three of them gone now, right? Under different circumstances. But Malcolm and Martin, if you look at their stories close enough and you read their FBI files, you find out they got infiltrated by people that look just like them. They got infiltrated by tribesmen who took sides with the enemy. The enemy, who also looked like the tribes, was standing right there with us the whole time, and we never knew that they looked like us, and they wasn't us. And every time we made a play to take the power back, it was these ones in our midst that was cutting us down like they did Clarence 13X, right? Sliding us up into government hands like they did Yahweh Ben Yahweh, right? They crossing them out. They know who they is. They watching them from birth. But every now and then, one falls through the cracks, and then they have to try to figure out what to do. The only case where the allegation, be it true or false, does not matter. The allegation of a sexual assault or nefarious sexual behavior is the only evidence you need to convict somebody of the rape. It's the allegation is the key piece of evidence. It's the only crime where an allegation is the linchpin evidence of the case, whether it's true or whether it's not true. The allegation is the prime underpinning evidence, not the DNA, because it could be DNA there, and then the girl could say she consented, so now the DNA is so what? It's there, should be there, right? So the DNA is not the linchpin credible information. It just proves the contact. Then you have bruises. Some people like it rough, and they get bruised up, getting contorted while they getting their back blowed out. So the bruises is not enough to prove a rape. The allegation is the key piece of evidence in any sexual assault case. And a lot of the times, when you get past the character testing of all of their nefarious things they offer you to sacrifice your moral compass, right? And now they had to get rid of you, but now the only thing left, because they can't catch you selling dope, so they can't give you a dope case. You ain't riding around with M16s and AK-47s in your car, so they can't charge you with firearms cases. They kind of figure out how to get you from telling these people and waking these people up because you done squeezed through the cracks. Now remember, the goal of COINTELPRO is to stop the rise of any potential messiah that could incite the masses. They don't know who the messiah is, but if you have messiah potential, right? If you got messiah potential, you on the list. That means if you can lead 3, 4, 5 kids on the playground in elementary school, put him on the list. If you got a little crew of dudes that you run out, put them on the list. Find out who their leader is, put him on the list. And then they start putting roadblocks in your life, right? You don't see them coming because you just looking at being genuine, and you so genuine that when people be disingenuine, you automatically assume they being genuine too. They not. They making that shit up. They putting on a charade. They masquerading as a good person in order to fuck you over. That's their whole mission. They don't have no other mission. Their life don't mean nothing to them unless they can mess you over. Once they realize that they can mess you over, now they feel like they have some purpose to live. We done tore this brother down. Yay, we got him. And we ain't gonna never rise now. We not gonna keep falling for that. Sooner or later, somebody gonna learn how to play the game the way where you ain't getting trapped up and tripped up by people that look like you that ain't you. You be able to. The key question becomes this: if you have two things, you have the ones that's truthfully with us and the ones that's masquerading to be part of us in order to tear us down. So you have to do what's called comparative analysis. So you create a baseline of the ones that you know is absolutely for us, right? Once you got a baseline, now you look at it and say, okay, now who crossed each one of these guys out? Look at their pattern. Most of them remained in obscurity. You never know what they did because they like to hide in the background. He's an Amun priest. He's a black Jew. He's a Hebrew Israelite. And this is why they got us all believing that a promised land is other than the whole land mass of the earth. Ain't no place more holy than another. The holiest place to you is the place where you standing. Because you standing there is what make it holy for you. Because if it wasn't there, you couldn't stand there. Therefore, there would be nothing holy to it. You the cause of your own holy land. Pilgrimages was invented in Mesoamerica and exported around the world. It was a time when we all made pilgrimage to different major temple sites in what was Fertile Crescent of the Gulf, from Louisiana, Texas, all the way down to Mexico, going into South America to the Amazon. So it's from the Mississippi in North America, and it was the Fertile Crescent, was all the way around to the outlet of the Amazon. And this is where most of our major pilgrimage temples was located, right? You can still see the ground wear in the pattern of the marches to the land. If you look at the satellite view, you can see where it looked like riverbeds, but they not riverbeds, they walking trails. But from the sky, they look like old riverbeds. They're not riverbeds, but you could see the vein of them going into all of the major temple sites. They was all pilgrimage sites for different things. The biggest one used to be at the Temple of Isis, where we used to have the corn festival, because corn was the symbol for the victory in the creation process of humanity. So they all had different corn strains that they grew, and they elders developed these strains to make each strain of corn slightly different from the other, the same way people supposed to be. You're supposed to have a rootstock, and then you're supposed to have leaves off on the side somewhere, right? Those are called tributaries. And then you keep the diversity by occasionally you'll mix something new in there and you'll change the whole strain. And then it give us all of these double helixes, and they're not telling you that it's all because Earth is still undergoing a great big genetic experiment where you took a sentient being that was created without ascension rights, and now we have to figure out how to give these sentient beings the right to ascend so we all ain't stuck in the infinity loop. They can't fix the infinity loop until everybody has the equal opportunity of ascension, of awakening, of manifesting their greatest realities. When everybody have the equal opportunity, right, and then we understand that ain't no big eyes or no little U's, then you understand that in order for everybody to make it, somebody had to make sure that everybody make it. So then they come up with a plan. And then they give what they call the devil 6,000 years to rule. You got 6,000 years to fix the problem, is the truth. Not rule, fix the problem. But sometimes when you fixing the problem, you have to be in charge of certain stuff. So they get a devil 6,000 years to rule. So Yakub grafted his beings, and then he had niggas make them look like they got power. It's in the text. They don't got no power. All of the power comes from the women. Some of them women got power because they passed, but they still got that mitochondrial link. You know, because she that old sassy mouth big mama of theirs that act just like your big mama. She just look a lot lighter, right? Because she got her drop of blood. Still got the swag. You can't have the swag if you don't got the blood, right? So the ones that was off rhythm is aligning back to the rhythm, because the rhythm has been put back in the people. And the rhythm is proven through the reaction to the sounds of the music. And if you can keep step with the line dance, the foxtrot, the square dance, if you can get jiggy with it, if you can pop lock with the best of them, if you can do the robot and the wave, and pass off as if you was one of them originators because you so good. One drop of blood is being activated in order to give everybody the equal right of ascension. But because we were under the control of foreign entities and they needed to stay in charge as long as possible, they turned us against each other. But it had a double purpose. It was reverse psychology on one hand. It's the only way you're going to make a guy do something is tell him he can't do it, right? And then it was divide and conquer on the other hand to keep them under control, keep them fighting each other so we don't have to fight them. So, you're like, what are you talking about, Rod? Who is this we that have to fight them? I'm going to show y'all something. Most people that never put this together. But when I show y'all this, I'm gonna exit and come back on to take callers. I'm gonna reset to another video, but I gotta show y'all this. Gotta find one more. Hold on. Now you remember in World War II, they told us that Hitler was killing off the Jews, right? And show us these pale people in Auschwitz and different camps. But these is the real Jews, right? These people right here. Okay, now, them people is the same as these people. This is as Germany's Black Holocaust. Now, Kanye was just reading a statement from Hitler on social media a day or two ago about starting World War III. These people I just showed you are the Zionists just pulling the strings behind pale faces. The Khazarian Mafia is them, but the Khazars that we see as the so-called Hasidic Jew today, they are puppets. They not even Jewish because they don't have a bloodline, right? And the people I just showed you was the people that Adolf Hitler was fighting. But they made Adolf Hitler look like Charlie Chaplin on purpose, so you would never know that he was dark like this. You'll never know it. And he was over there because he was from a bloodline of what they call fake Jews that was over there as captives. His bloodline were captives. They were part of one of the Roman prisoner of war colonies. This is where they got the concept to enslave us on our farms and call them plantations and tell us we were slaves. All that comes from what was going on over there. But if you don't ever know what was going on over there, this is why you have to study world history. Regional world history, where you take each region and you study it individually. We didn't know that Prussia preceded Russia, and that the country or the nation of Khazarians come from a place called Khazaria, which is in the Prussian mountains, right? Which was the home of ancient bankers who moved to the mountains so that they can secure the bounty of their wealth. And these bankers were illegitimate mulatto children who didn't have matriarchal birthrights, so they gave them patriarchal rights to govern the money, right? So they became bankers. And these bankers set up these colonies where bankers would do banking and use it to finance wars and kings. And they didn't mind financing the wars and the kings because their coffers got bigger once somebody won the war, but they financed both sides. And this is what makes them be neutral. You can't be neutral in the middle of a world war when every country in the world is at war except you, and not be the one that's the problem. Why nobody not bothering you? Then when you look and you say, well, who's pulling the purse strings in all of the wars? And they all trace back to Switzerland, since Switzerland been Switzerland. So it's around the 1800s. But before that, they trace back to Khazaria. But before that, they trace back to Etruskia, which later became known as Rome. Under the Roman Empire, Novaticus, which was the woman who was a sacerdotal seat put together for the Great Mother's return, because she returned every 26,000 years. And Vatica was the daughter who was doing the work to prepare the sacerdotal seat. She was usurped by the Roman government and her temple taken over, as well as the Gorgon priestesses of Greece. They was at war with Romans. So the Silk Road was how every family on the earth, every royal family on the earth, had to give up a drop of blood, whether they wanted to. Some protested. It wasn't, but the good had to suffer with the bad, because all of us would have continued to suffer if these people don't have ascension rights. Everybody that's sentient has to have the rights of ascension. If you don't have the rights of ascension, you keep us in the infinity loop of replaying 3D reality and living the same timelines over and over. And now they so all wore out that they can't even sustain themselves. Somebody has to fix the problem. So they sent them all to the great melting pot. It's like when you build a car, before you had mechanics, whoever made the product, you send it back to the maker. You send it back to the source of the product in order for it to get properly repaired, right? That's why every dealership has a repair section, right? Now, with people, the repair section, we didn't have hospitals. We had the understanding of nature. But when they brought somebody that was counterfeit, the original manufacturers like, man, these people have brought in some counterfeit ass people. This ain't the money I printed. This is monopoly money. This ain't the money I printed. Right? So what do? You have to figure out a way. In this case, we're talking about sentient beings that was being developed in laboratories. So what's the remedy? You can't survive unless you got a drop of blood. It tell you in the Anunnaki tablets, by the way, the remedy that Enki offered up, and he was scolded for, was to tell them the only remedy is to give the ones that they infused a drop of blood. Let that child wake up to his higher senses. And it was a big fight about it. But it tells you the whole story in here. They tell you the short version in the Bible. And God said, the man has become like one of us, lest he eat from the tree of eternal life. Let's kick his ass out this garden. What is the tree of eternal life? The eternal bloodlines of the primordial original earth strain is the original blood. And the only remedy to allow them to tap into the tree of life is to allow them to tie into the vine, which is tying in to the divine, right? And divine is also the root word of divination. The ability to see beyond sight based on what you're seeing within your sight. There's this thing called cause and reaction. If you don't find a solution for the problem will continue to fester like a cancer until it's fucked everything up. So you got two options. Fix the problem and don't care, just get it fixed, or let it take everybody to hell. This is why we breaking out of the what they call it, the firmament, but it's the Van Allen belt. It's a Pleiadian barrier to the solar rays that also served as a spiritual containment chamber to keep the ones fighting the war within the confines of the realm of Earth. Can't leave. You can exit the body, but when you realize that you didn't finish fixing the problem, you come back. And the problem is that every time you come back, you're taking on amnesia again for 6,000 years of this shit till you figure it out. So that means that you have to go from amnesia at birth of your past lives and then use this life to try to solve the problem without no knowledge of the past life. Not until the veil is thin, which is called the closing of the age. As the veil thins, people begin to see. And then the people that begin to see have a tendency to write it down so that they can tell it to their children and grandchildren. Because they was in the amnesia, the writing became the way to preserve the memory. But once the memory is restored, the writing is obsolete now. You don't need to write it. You know it now, right? But your communication skills might require you to have to write in order to somebody else to understand what you're telling them. Because some people can understand it better if they read it than if they hear it. And some people understand it better if they hear it than if they read it. So what we end up doing is we get caught in this conflicting ideas of the written word versus the spoken word. People will say that the spoken word is unreliable. The only difference between the written word and the spoken word is you can review the written word visually. But the spoken word, you have to draw it back from your holographic memory. But you haven't learned how to activate your holographic memory. Therefore, you haven't trained yourself to be able to have a conversation and recite back word for word what was just said to you over the last minute of this person's rant. So you can shake their foundation enough for your answer to be effective. Because you was too busy waiting on your turn to double dutch that you didn't even hear a word of what the other person said. You just had to get yours out. And remember, being that Malcolm X, right? In ancient Egypt, when they said we was going to go into this darkness, they said his birthday was something. Malcolm was one of the most prolific listeners that we have recorded about people noticing how intent he listened to their issues. You can't solve a problem if you only hear part of the problem. But you can solve it best when you understand the whole problem. And sometimes some people will have a piece to the problem and somebody else will have a different piece. And not until you get the two pieces together will you realize what it takes to break the problem. So I'm gonna end this now because I don't want it to be too long where people don't want to watch it. But then I'm gonna come in and do a Q&A. So anybody want to be in on the Q&A? When I log off of this, I'm gonna come back on the live and y'all be on there. It's gonna be Chiefing with the Chief Q&A.